Snow fell in shimmering silence, blanketing the world in silver stillness. The small, weathered house at the edge of town stood alone, its windows glowing faintly with the flicker of a dying fire. Inside, the Wilsons huddled around a worn-out armchair, the weight of grief draping the room like a second winter. Sarah Wilson, clutching her son's favorite scarf, stared blankly at the frost-kissed window. It had been a year since Michael's laughter had filled this house, a year since the car crash had torn him from their lives. Her husband, Tom, sat with his head bowed, his hands trembling around a chipped coffee mug. Their daughter, Lily, leaned against the mantel, her fingers tracing the edge of a photo frame. Silence stretched between them, fragile and heavy. Then came the knock. It was soft yet insistent, echoing unnaturally in the quiet night. Sarah rose, her heartbeat quickening as she opened the door. No one was there, only a gust of icy wind that swept a single object onto the threshold, a candle. It was unlike any she had seen before, its wax shimmering as if woven with starlight. Tied around it was a crimson ribbon bearing a note, "Light this on Christmas Eve, and your deepest wish will come true." Tom hesitated, but Lily's trembling voice broke the tension. "What if it's real?" she whispered. Desperation swirled in Sarah's chest like the storm outside. With trembling hands, she lit the candle. The flame flared, burning unnaturally bright. "I wish to have Michael back," she whispered, her voice cracking. The light dimmed, and the room turned deathly cold. Then came the sound of cracking wood, the stench of sulfur, and a voice, low and guttural, that sent shivers down their spines. "Your wish is granted." The world spun in a kaleidoscope of frost and shadows as the family was wrenched from their home. When the sensation stopped, they stood in a frozen wasteland, the icy wind biting into their skin like daggers. Jagged peaks of glistening ice surrounded them, forming an endless labyrinth that glimmered under the faint glow of an aurora above. "Where are we?" Lily whispered, clutching her mother's arm. Sarah held her daughter close, her breath misting in the frigid air. Tom scanned the expanse, his jaw tightening. "This must be one of the demon's trials," he said. Before anyone could respond, a chilling howl echoed across the icy expanse, sending their hearts racing. From the shadows of the labyrinth, spectral wolves emerged. Their translucent forms shimmered like moonlight, their glowing blue eyes fixed on the family. A voice, deep and mocking, boomed through the air. "Welcome to the frosted path. To escape, you must find the key hidden within the ice. Fail, and your souls become mine." The wolves began to circle, their growls rumbling like distant thunder. "We have to move," Sarah urged. They stumbled into the labyrinth, the sharp edges of the ice walls glowing faintly, casting eerie reflections. The wolves pursued them relentlessly, their howls growing closer with every misstep. "Over here!" Tom shouted, pointing to a glimmering shard embedded in an icy pillar. It was a key, its golden surface gleaming against the cold blue. But as they approached, the wolves surged forward, blocking their path. "We'll never make it," Lily cried, fear choking her voice. Tom grabbed a nearby icicle, brandishing it like a weapon. "We have to work together," he said firmly. "Sarah, take Lily and circle around. I'll distract them." "No," Sarah protested, her eyes wide with fear. "Just trust me," Tom shouted, running toward the wolves and waving his makeshift spear. The spectral creatures snarled and lunged, their icy bodies passing through the air like mist, but their presence was chilling enough to paralyze. Sarah pulled Lily to the side, her heart pounding as she led her daughter around the edge of the pillar. "Keep quiet," she whispered, shielding Lily with her body. Tom fought to hold the wolves' attention, his breaths coming in sharp gasps as he swung the icicle at their spectral forms. It passed harmlessly through them, but the movement slowed their advance, keeping them focused on him. Meanwhile, Sarah spotted the key gleaming just out of reach, encased in a thin layer of ice. She grabbed a jagged rock and slammed it against the ice with all her strength. The cold numbed her fingers, but she didn't stop. The ice cracked, the key falling into her trembling hands. She turned to Tom. "I have it," she shouted. "Run." Tom yelled, backing toward them as the wolves closed in. The family sprinted deeper into the labyrinth, the wolves howling in frustration behind them. The air grew colder, the frost biting at their lungs, but the key began to glow faintly in Sarah's hand, guiding their way. "This way," she said, following the key's light. The path twisted and turned, each corner feeling like a dead end, but the glow intensified with each step. Finally, they stumbled into a clearing at the labyrinth's center. A massive, ornate door stood before them, its surface etched with ancient runes. Sarah pushed the key into the lock, her fingers trembling. The door creaked open, revealing a portal of warm golden light. The wolves skidded to a halt, their spectral forms snarling, but unable to cross the threshold. As the family stepped through, the frozen world dissolved behind them, leaving them standing in the dim glow of their living room once more. The candle's flame burned steady, but its wax had melted slightly, marking the passage of time. "Is it over?" Lily asked, her voice shaking. Tom shook his head, his face grim. That was just the beginning. The air around them shifted again, heavy with anticipation. The demon's voice returned, mocking and cold. "Well done," it drawled. "But this was a mere frostbitten taste of what awaits. Prepare yourselves, the next trial will not be so forgiving." The family huddled together, their breaths heavy, their resolve hardening.
The family barely had time to catch their breath before the room began to warp again. The faint glow of their living room was replaced by flickering candelabras and the warm scent of roasted chestnuts. They now stood in a grand dining hall, its vaulted ceiling dripping with glittering icicles. A massive table stretched before them, laden with golden platters of steaming food, glazed hams, candied fruits, spiced puddings, and wine that shimmered like liquid rubies. Lily's stomach growled audibly, her eyes wide. "It smells so good," she whispered, taking a step toward the table. "Don't," Tom warned, grabbing her arm. His voice was tight with suspicion. The demon's voice echoed, smooth and sardonic. "Welcome to the Feast of Shadows. Your trial is simple. Enjoy the feast, if you dare. But be warned, one bite, one sip, and you belong to me forever." Lily froze, her hunger replaced by fear. Sarah looked around the hall, noticing the shadows flickering unnaturally on the walls, as if alive. They seemed to be watching, waiting. Tom gestured to the room's far end. "There's a door over there. That must be the way out." They approached cautiously, but as they neared the door, the shadows surged forward, blocking their path. The walls seemed to close in, the air growing thick and suffocating. "The feast is the key," Sarah murmured, her mind racing. "There must be something here we need." Scanning the table, she noticed a single golden chalice amid the glittering dishes. It shimmered brighter than the rest, its surface engraved with ancient symbols. "That's it," she said, pointing. "But how do we get it without eating or drinking anything?" Tom asked. "I'll distract the shadows," Sarah said, her voice steady. "Lily, you're the smallest. Crawl under the table and grab the chalice." Lily hesitated, but her mother's determined gaze gave her courage. She dropped to her knees and slid beneath the table, her heart pounding as she avoided the heavy silverware that fell with each rattling movement. The shadows loomed closer, their tendrils clawing at Sarah and Tom as they stood their ground. Just as the darkness was about to consume them, Lily emerged with the chalice. "Now!" Sarah shouted. The chalice emitted a brilliant light, dissolving the shadows. The door opened, and the family rushed through, gasping for air as the hall disappeared behind them. "Two down," Tom said grimly, his hands trembling. The warm light of the golden portal faded, and the family found themselves standing in what looked like an abandoned toy factory. Dust motes floated through dim shafts of light, and the air carried the faint scent of aged wood and grease. Shelves lined with forgotten dolls, stuffed animals, and wind-up trains loomed around them, their hollow eyes gleaming faintly. "Is this a toy workshop?" Lily asked, her voice trembling as she clung to Sarah's arm. Tom frowned, his eyes scanning the eerie surroundings. "I don't think this is any ordinary workshop." A mechanical whirring sound cut through the silence, and the toys began to stir. Dolls turned their heads, toy soldiers marched out of formation, and stuffed animals leaped from the shelves with unnerving agility. A voice echoed around them, dripping with malice. "Welcome to the trial of the twisting toys," the demon drawled. To escape, you must play and win my games. Each toy holds a challenge, but beware, if you fail twice, your fate will be sealed, and you'll remain here forever as one of my forgotten playthings. The family froze as toys began to move. A jack-in-the-box with jagged teeth bounced toward them, a sinister melody playing from its twisted grin. A wind-up carousel in the distance spun erratically, its horses shrieking. The jack-in-the-box stopped before them, its crank turning toward Lily. "Wind me up, play my tune, and guess the final note," it hissed. "But hurry. Hesitation will count as failure." Tom stepped forward, his brow furrowing. "We'll handle this together." He began turning the crank, the box playing a haunting, discordant melody. When the music stopped abruptly, Tom guessed, C sharp. The jack-in-the-box snapped its lid open, revealing jagged teeth. Correct, for now. The melody began again, faster and more chaotic. Sarah took the next turn, her hands shaking as she guessed. A minor. The toy shuddered but closed its lid. "You pass, this time." It fell to the floor, lifeless, and a door opened ahead. In the next room, the wind-up carousel spun wildly, its horses kicking violently as if trying to escape. Above it, a sign read, "Ride the chosen horse and calm the chaos. Choose wrong, and the storm will consume you." The family hesitated. Each horse looked eerie, its eyes glowing faintly, but one, a black horse with a silver mane, stood still amid the chaos. "It must be that one," Sarah said, but Lily shook her head. "No, it's the gold horse with the red eyes. Trust me." "Okay, Lily," Tom said hesitantly, helping her turn the key in the gold horse's chest. The moment it activated, the carousel sped up, the horses bucking harder. Sparks flew as the golden horse reared, throwing Lily backward. "You failed," the demon's voice boomed, laughter echoing. "You have one chance left. Fail again, and your story ends here." Lily looked ready to cry. "It's okay, sweetie. We'll figure this out together," Sarah said softly, brushing her hair back. Tom turned to the black horse with the silver mane and climbed on. As soon as he gripped its reins, the chaos settled. The carousel stopped spinning, and the horses froze. A door appeared in the wall ahead. The family entered a cavernous room dominated by a massive teddy bear. Its chest glowed faintly, and a low growl echoed through the space. In front of it was a table with a jigsaw puzzle, its pieces scattered. "To unlock my heart, complete the puzzle," the bear growled. "But beware, time is fleeting." They scrambled to assemble the pieces. The puzzle was more complex than it seemed, with shapes shifting when placed incorrectly. A horde of smaller toys attacked them relentlessly, buzzing planes and clattering trains, forcing them to defend themselves as they worked. Lily, still shaken, hesitated before picking up a piece. Tom noticed and knelt down beside her. "Hey, I know it's scary, but we need you. I believe in you." Sarah nodded. "You have a good eye, Lily. You'll help us win this." Lily's hands steadied. She picked up a piece shaped like a heart and slotted it into place. The puzzle clicked. "It fits." Encouraged, Lily quickly found more pieces, her confidence growing. As the last piece slid into place, the bear roared and slumped forwards more. Its glowing chest opened, revealing a large key. Lily grabbed the key, and the bear froze. The factory began to rumble, shelves collapsing and toys falling lifeless to the ground. "Go now!" Tom shouted, pulling them toward a glowing door that had appeared in the distance. They stumbled through, landing in the safety of their living room once more. The candle on the mantel flickered, its wax melting further. "That was terrifying," Lily whispered, her voice shaky. Tom hugged her tightly. "You were amazing, Lily. We couldn't have done it without you." Sarah smiled. "And it's not over yet." She pointed to the key Tom held, its metal faintly glowing red.
The golden portal shimmered and dissolved, leaving the family in an eerie courtyard bathed in pale, gray light. At its center stood an enormous bell, tarnished and cracked, its surface etched with faint, glowing runes. Around it loomed statues of faceless figures, their hands raised as if pleading for absolution. The air was heavy, suffused with a tense stillness that made every breath feel labored. "What is this place?" Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible over the oppressive silence. The demon's voice slithered through the air, cold and mocking. "The bell of lies," it hissed. "It feeds on the secrets you hide, the truths you fear to speak. To pass this trial, you must confess your deepest lies. But beware, each lie will summon a toll, and with it, your truth shall be laid bare. Only when all truths are spoken will the bell fall silent." Fail, and you will be bound here forever, your lies etched into eternity. The family exchanged uneasy glances, their hearts racing. Tom stepped forward, his fists clenched. "I'll go first," he said, his voice hollow. He stared at the massive bell, its glow seeming to pulse in anticipation. "I love my work. I've been doing everything I can to keep my business afloat." The bell's toll rang out, deep and resonant, shaking the courtyard. The runes on its surface flared, and the mist swirled, forming a vision. Tom's office appeared, papers strewn across the desk. His voice echoed, "I've given up. The business is failing, and it doesn't matter anymore, not without my son to inherit it." "Tom?" Sarah whispered, her face pale. His shoulders sagged, and his voice cracked. "I'm sorry. I didn't want to burden you. We've been living off loans. I just can't care anymore." Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but before she could speak, Lily stepped forward. "I'll go next," she said, her voice small. Her hands trembled as she spoke. "I'm okay now. I've moved on from losing my brother." The bell tolled again, its sound sharper this time, almost accusing. The mist swirled to reveal Lily sitting alone in her room, clutching her twin brother's favorite toy. "I wish it had been me," her voice from the vision sobbed. "I should have died with him." "Lily," Sarah knelt beside her daughter, pulling her into a tight hug. "Don't say that. We love you so much. We couldn't bear to lose you too." Tears streamed down Lily's face. "I miss him so much. It hurts every day." Finally, Sarah stood, her breath unsteady. She turned to the bell, her lips trembling. "The accident wasn't my fault. There was nothing I could have done to save him." The bell's toll was deafening, a sound that seemed to tear through the air and strike their hearts. The mist shifted, forming the vision of Sarah gripping the steering wheel of their car, glancing down at her phone as it buzzed. Her voice echoed, "It was just one message. Just a second. Why couldn't I have waited?" The scene twisted into the horrific crash that followed, the phone falling to the floor. Tom staggered backward, his face contorted with shock. "Sarah, you were texting?" "I didn't mean to," Sarah cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. I was careless. I killed him. It's my fault he's gone." The bell fell silent, its light fading. The statues around them crumbled into dust, and a door appeared, glowing faintly in the mist. The demon's voice slithered through the air once more. "You have faced your truths, but the weight of them will haunt you. Proceed if you dare." Tom took Sarah's hand, his voice steady despite the tears in his eyes. "We have to keep going. For him. For us." Together, they stepped through the door, their secrets no longer hidden, but their bond stronger for having faced them. The golden portal deposited the family into an expansive, dimly lit mall. The once cheerful echoes of a bustling holiday crowd were replaced by an eerie silence, broken only by the distant, ghostly hum of a spectral choir. Christmas lights flickered overhead, their glow pulsating in time with the haunting melody that filled the air. Tom landed in an electronics store. The rows of darkened screens reflected his tense expression until, one by one, the monitors flickered to life. Images of spectral carolers appeared, their wide, hollow eyes staring into his soul as their songs began to sap his strength. His knees buckled, but he forced himself forward, gripping the edge of a counter to steady himself. Sarah stumbled into a children's toy store, where the shelves were lined with creepy, grinning dolls and wind-up toys that moved in sync with the choir's melody. The song pressed against her mind like a crushing weight, making it hard to think. As the lyrics swirled in her head, memories of the accident that claimed her son clawed their way to the surface. Lily awoke in a cold, empty food court. Her small body trembled as the oppressive music grew louder, and the shadows of carolers danced on the walls around her. Tears welled in her eyes, but she clenched her fists, determined not to let the fear win. The song began to grow clearer for each of them. The lyrics twisted around their thoughts, speaking of betrayal and curses, of joy turned to torment. Tom stumbled out of the electronics store and into a hallway lined with artificial snow and candy cane decorations. He gritted his teeth as the choir's words became sharper, cutting into his thoughts. Under the boughs where joy should stay, the song whispered mockingly in his ear. He shook his head to clear it. In the toy store, Sarah pushed past the aisles, the dolls' heads turning to follow her every move. The lyrics were clawing at her heart now. His torment begins each Christmas day, they sang, and she felt a pang of guilt so deep it made her stumble. She slammed her palm against a shelf to steady herself, her breath coming in short gasps. Meanwhile, Lily struggled to stay conscious. The song seemed louder here, a crushing, relentless force. But she focused on the words, replaying them in her head. Once a guardian of cheer, his heart turned to ice. Betrayed by those he loved, cursed for their vice. Under the boughs where joy should stay, his torment begins each Christmas day. A Christmas tree, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Then, with what little strength she had, she screamed, Christmas tree. The echo carried through them all, faint but unmistakable. Tom froze, the words cutting through the choir's oppressive melody. Lily, he whispered, his heart pounding. He ran toward the nearest holiday display, scanning for a tree. Sarah heard it too and forced herself to move, pushing through the oppressive weight of the music. Lily, she called, her voice trembling. Tom reached a massive central plaza. At its center stood a towering Christmas tree, glowing faintly with an unnatural light. Beneath its boughs sat a small, ornate music box. It turned slowly, each note twisting the melody into something darker, stronger. Sarah found Lily in the food court, her small body slumped against a chair. I'm here, sweetheart, Sarah said, kneeling beside her. She brushed back Lily's hair and held her close. You were so brave, Lily. You gave us the clue. Lily's lips trembled. Mom, it hurts. I know, Sarah said softly. But your dad's going to fix this. Just hold on. Tom approached the music box, his body trembling from the choir's relentless assault. He gripped the edge of a nearby table, steadying himself. You're not winning, he growled, his voice shaking with determination. With one final push, he raised a heavy snow globe from the display and brought it down hard on the music box. The music stopped. The carolers' spectral figures dissolved into mist, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. A golden portal opened nearby, and Sarah carried Lily toward it, tears streaming down her face. Tom followed, the shattered remains of the music box still clutched in his hand. Back in their living room, the family collapsed onto the couch, their breaths ragged. The candle on the mantel flickered weakly, its wax melted almost halfway. That song, Sarah said, breaking the silence. It wasn't just about us. It was about him, the demon. He wasn't always evil. Lily looked up, her face pale but determined. He was cursed, she whispered. Tom frowned. He used to be a guardian of Christmas. But something, or someone, betrayed him. They landed with a thud on an expanse of smooth, polished obsidian. Around them, a chilling fog swirled, reflecting distorted versions of their forms in countless shards of jagged glass floating in midair. Before they could steady themselves, the Yule demon's voice echoed from all around, deep and resonant, vibrating in their bones. Welcome to the Mirror of Regret, it announced, its tone almost melancholic. Here, your past holds the keys to your freedom, or your doom. Each of you will enter a reflection of your greatest regret. You will have the chance to rewrite history, to undo the choices that haunt you, and to see the future your actions create. But beware, if you attempt to rewrite the past twice, you will be forever bound to the reflection, unable to return to the present. The only way to move forward is to confront your regret, accept it, and let it go. Before they could respond, the obsidian floor split into 4 separate paths. Each family member was pulled into a different direction by an invisible force. Their cries of protest were drowned out as the fog thickened, swallowing them whole. Tom found himself in his office, but it wasn't the cold, empty space he now knew. It was alive with the sound of laughter. His son, Michael, sat at a small desk beside him, eagerly sketching designs for toys, a hobby they used to share. "Dad, look at this. Someday, I'm going to make toys as good as yours." Michael beamed, his youthful enthusiasm piercing Tom's heart. Tom's eyes welled up with tears. He remembered this moment vividly. He'd been so preoccupied with a failing deal that he'd brushed Michael off, dismissing his dreams. But this time, he knelt beside his son, placing a hand on his shoulder. "That's incredible, buddy," Tom whispered. "Let's build it together." The scene dissolved, and Tom was thrust forward in time. He saw himself now running a thriving business with Michael, the two of them as partners. Yet, in this future, Sarah and Lily were absent. His obsession with his company had driven a wedge between him and the rest of his family. "This isn't right," Tom muttered. "It's not worth losing them." The mirror called to him, offering another chance to fix things, but he resisted. Gritting his teeth, he whispered, "I'm sorry, Michael. I'll honor your memory, but I can't change the past." Sarah was in her car, her phone in her hand. Michael and Lily sat in the back seat, giggling over a shared joke. She remembered this day, the one she couldn't forget no matter how hard she tried. "I told you kids to quiet down," she had snapped back then, picking up her phone to reply to a text. She glanced at her reflection in the rearview mirror, ashamed. This time, she put her phone down. "Let's get ice cream after this, okay?" she said instead, smiling warmly at her children. The memory dissolved, replaced by a future where Michael was alive but resentful. He blamed her for the distant, overprotective parent she'd become. Lily, too, felt overshadowed by her brother's presence, their bond fractured. Tears streamed down Sarah's face. "No," she whispered. "I can't change the past. I'll carry this pain, but I won't abandon the family I have now." Lily found herself sitting beside Michael on the day of the car crash. She was holding his hand tightly, waiting for the moment of impact so she can pull him to her side for safety. "I'm not letting you go," she said fiercely, pulling him closer to her. The scene shifted to a future where Michael was alive, but their roles had reversed. Lily became a shadow of herself, consumed by guilt for surviving a tragedy that never happened. She saw her parents struggling, burdened by her withdrawal and Michael's ungratefulness. "I don't want this," Lily cried, her voice breaking. "I miss you, Michael, but I can't lose myself to bring you back." The fog lifted, and the family reappeared together on the obsidian floor, their faces pale and streaked with tears. They clung to one another silently, their shared pain binding them closer than ever. "Well done," the Yule demon's voice returned, softer this time. "Regret is a poison that chains the soul. By facing it, you have freed yourselves." The fog dissipated, and they were pulled back into their living room once more. The candle flickered, its wax dripping further, signaling that the next trial was not far behind. Next was the trial of the Enchanted Forest. The family was plunged into a dense, snow-covered forest filled with glowing trees and whispering winds. The Yule demon explained that the only way out was to follow the path of truth, which shifted depending on their honesty. Each family member had to confess a painful truth about themselves to move forward. Tom admitted he'd buried himself in debt, Sarah confessed her growing bitterness towards herself, and Lily revealed her feelings of loneliness. The trees glowed brighter with each confession, eventually guiding them to the exit. In a vast chamber dominated by a colossal, ticking clock, the family was challenged to stop the hands before midnight. Each tick brought visions of their worst fears. Tom saw his family falling apart, Sarah saw herself alone, and Lily relived Michael's death. The Yule demon reminded them that time was beyond their control. By letting the clock tick freely and focusing on the present moment, they broke the curse and learned to accept the flow of time. Next they were confronted by a monstrous red reindeer with glowing eyes, guarding the next key. The reindeer demanded an act of courage and kindness to allow passage. Tom risked his life to calm the raging beast, showing empathy rather than fear. The reindeer transformed into a majestic creature and granted them the key, revealing that it was once a companion of the Yule demon, cursed alongside him. The family found themselves in a room filled with enticing gifts, each one offering to fulfill their deepest desires but at the cost of betraying someone they loved. Lily was tempted by the chance to bring her brother back, Sarah by the chance to erase her guilt, and Tom by the opportunity to rebuild his company. But they refused the gifts, choosing their family's unity over selfish desires. Their selflessness dissolved the illusion, earning them the next key. In complete darkness, the family faced the trial of trust. Each had to guide the others through the void by relying solely on their voices and instincts. Every misstep brought them closer to an abyss. With patience and teamwork, they navigated the darkness and reached the final candle. The Yule demon revealed that this trial was meant to teach them the importance of faith in one another. The family reappeared in their living room, where the Yule demon stood before them. The once menacing figure looked weary and sorrowful, his form dim and translucent. "You have reached the end," the demon said, his voice heavy with regret. "You now hold the power to undo one tragedy in your lives, to reclaim what was taken from you. But I warn you, your wish will seal my fate. I will remain cursed, forgotten, and alone." The family looked at each other, the weight of their journey pressing down on them. They had learned of the demon's past. Once a guardian of Christmas, he had been cursed for a moment of weakness, failing to prevent a great tragedy. His punishment had turned him into the Yule demon, a being destined to bring trials to those seeking their wishes. Tom stepped forward. "We've spent so long wishing we could change the past, but we've learned that our pain has shaped who we are. We can't undo what's been done, but we can choose to do something good." Sarah nodded. "You've suffered enough. If we've learned anything, it's that love and sacrifice go hand in hand." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "We wish to free you, so you can be the guardian you were meant to be." The Yule demon's eyes widened in disbelief. "You would give up your one wish for me?" Tom placed his hand on Lily's shoulder. "We would. It's what Michael would have wanted." The demon's form began to glow, his shadowy exterior peeling away to reveal a radiant figure dressed in golden robes. The room filled with a warm light as the curse shattered, and the demon, no, the guardian, was restored. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "Your selflessness has reminded me of the true spirit of Christmas. May your family find peace and joy in the days ahead." With that, the guardian vanished, leaving the family surrounded by the soft glow of the final candle. For the first time in years, they felt a deep sense of healing. Christmas morning arrived with the warmth of love and the promise of new beginnings, a testament to the power of sacrificial love.